Hello and welcome to the first Association Football Board podcast. I'm your host by unpopular demand SM, and with me tonight I have the Prosecutor.
Hello SM, you don't flatter yourself there with that introduction.
No, never one for self-flattery. And we also have Cooksen along.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Voltball podcast.
Now, I think we're going to get underway talking about the World Cup, which is just a bit over a week away, and we're going to fire through the first few groups and just give our predictions on who we think will go through. So, Prosecutor, if you want to get us started with Group A.
Okay, Group A, we've got the host team in Brazil, one of the pre-tournament favourites, as always, the perennial favourites, Croatia, Mexico and Cameroon. So, a relatively straightforward group, I'd say, from my point of view. Brazil, you'd say, would go through on top, and maybe raffle it off between Croatia and Mexico. What about you guys? What do you think?
Probably Brazil will go through. After all, they've changed their footballing style from being expensive and fantastic to more compact, more defensive, more solid, and they have Neymar, who hopefully will be in for a good tournament, and of course Oscar. So yeah.
Yeah,
You go, sorry.
Yeah, so I think the interesting one, as Prosecutor said, is Mexico. I mean, Croatia to me probably is the one that'll go through with Brazil, but Mexico could throw up a bit of a wild card.
Yeah, Mexico have struggled to get through their qualifying in the end. They had to play in the playoff against New Zealand, which of course they got through comprehensively, but even still, it wasn't that impressive of a qualification period for them. I mean, Croatia had to come through during the playoffs as well from memory. So, I mean, and they're two teams that aren't at the top of their game. And to be honest, Brazil is going to be interesting in their own right because, as I said, they are perennial favourites. But even they've got a few question marks over them because it's a new squad than what we're used to at previous World Cups.
Yeah, I mean, I think about 6 months ago I wouldn't have given Brazil much of a chance, and then, I think probably even 12 months ago, but all of a sudden you've got all this new Brazilian talent coming into the Premier League, coming into some of the other leagues in Europe, and all of a sudden they've got quite a young, exciting squad.
Yeah, and I guess they do have that offensive flair about them, but whether they had the maturity to go all the way and salute on their home turf, I think that's probably the big question mark surrounding Brazil.
Yep, will the pressure be too much for them? And we'll just run through some notable players. If you aren't a big fan of football, for Mexico, we've got Javier Hernandez from Manchester United. We've got Giovanni Dos Santos. Then for Croatia, we have the Real Madrid midfielder Luka Modric with Ivica Olic, the old forward, with Hal Suleiman for SM with Nikola Janic.
I was hoping you'd mention him.
Yeah. So have Mario Mandzukic, and of course the Dwara, who's more well known for a horrific injury, but this is not it's a final squad. And for Cameroon, we really have the most well-known player is Samuel Eto'o, the old man.
Yeah. Well,
I must say that probably the key player to come out of that group of players mentioned would be Luka Modric, who's been in terrific form for Real Madrid, much to the Spurs' displeasure. But I reckon he'll play a huge part in the fortunes of this group.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, and he's all...
I think it'll be interesting as well for Croatia because I believe Mandzukic is suspended for their opening game, so it'll be interesting to see how they line up in attack.
Yeah, I mean, and they've got Brazil straight up. So I mean, it's a fantastic way to kick off the cup, really, and a great way to kick off Group A. And we'll learn a lot about the group from those opening two games.
Yeah, absolutely. How about we move on to Group B then, where Australia's probably not liking its chances of even scoring a goal, but
look,
we've got two finalists from the last World Cup.
Yeah, it's the group of death, but not in your standard terms. It's the group of death for Australia. I mean, if they can keep their goal differential to under 10 goals, then I'll personally organise them a ticker tape parade. But it's going to be a hell of a challenge. I mean, Spain is Spain. I mean, they're the biggest heavyweight in world football at the moment. Netherlands can do anything on the day. I mean, as you said, they're both the finalists from the last World Cup, so there's a lot of expectation on them, and
Chile.
And Chile could. Who knows what Chile could do? I mean, they could not score a point and come up against us trying to. Oh well, we played them first in our games. That could, that Chile could challenge for a second spot, a wild card sort of thing, or they could finish no points and go down and choke to us. I mean, it's a straightforward group, but it'll be interesting what Chile does. I mean, they're probably the one sort of iffy team in there about what they'll actually be able to accomplish.
And the Dutch team, I think I've read quite a bit about him. Naturally, is Louis van Gaal, who'll become United's manager, but they'll be lining up with a 5-3-2 formation with Robin van Persie up front, with Schneider being the attacking mid, and I believe Jordi Clase and Nigel Giong behind him. And Spain, who'll be lining up in a 4-3-3 with, well, it depends on if Diego Costa's fit or not. But realistically, Australia's best chance, if we can nick some goals, I think we could maybe beat the Netherlands, but our chances have been harmed with losing our centre-backs and, of course, our best player in Robbie Cruz.
Yeah, I think it's going to be ugly for Australia. I think we've conditioned ourselves to that, so it won't be any great surprise. That's not to say that you won't get people, especially the casual watchers, but when it comes to World Cups, who will be outraged and want Angie sacked and all that sort of stuff. But it is going to be difficult for Australia, and there are a lot of quality players in this group, and I mean that's one of the privileges of the World Cup is we do get to see the likes of, say, Costa, Van Persie, Robin, do their thing and play against us, and that's the beauty of this competition is that it brings all these players together, and I think this group highlights that.
I think that's it. I mean, we basically treat the World Cup as a warm-up to the Asian Cup of sorts, just to get the players playing in Ange's style, get them sort of operating in his system, and get us really excited as a nation for the future of the squad, because it's a remarkably young squad.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's when you look back at the glory days of 2006, it's a hugely bastardized version of that. I mean, who do we have still from that group? Obviously, we've got Cahill, Kennedy,
Bresciano.
Yeah. Apart from that, we haven't really retained anyone from that era. So it really is a completely different look team, and obviously there are going to be some dark days. But if anyone's watched the Batman, they'll know that the night's darkest before the dawn. So be interesting to see how we go leading up to the Asia Cup and the following World Cup in Russia, I believe it is.
I think
we've all seen worse from our AFL teams anyway. So what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah. I think the biggest disappointment for me is not having Robbie Cruz available, because I would have just loved to see what he could do on the big stage. He's such an exciting young player that it's really cruel for him to go out with that ACL.
Yeah.
Having Cruz and, well, needless to say, our key player, in case you're a casual viewer, it will be Tommy Orr, without a doubt. Chile's key player will be Arturo Vidal. Netherlands will possibly be Van Persie or Schneider, and for Spain, there's probably too much to list, but I'll just list
throw a dart at them.
Exactly. Dartboard, throw it.
Yeah. They've just got so much talent, it's ridiculous. You think even their C team, even the players that are left out of that squad, I think I saw a list of some of them. You got, your Navas and Negredo from Manchester City alone.
Exactly.
Outstanding talent.
We'll see if any of them have Australian parents.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or grandparents.
Exactly. Adopt them, seek asylum, something. On that note, you've got to feel sorry for, I think it's second place of Group A, who will have to play, Brazil. You've got to feel sorry for Brazil. Should they finish top of their group, they're even going to play probably Spain or Netherlands in their first knockout game. And that promises to be a hell of a game should it eventuate.
Be very, very interesting indeed, yeah. You think either Spain or Netherlands, arguably Spain will top the group, but if Netherlands pull it off, then Spain-Brazil as the first knockout game would be incredible.
And that's been touted as a final, so to have that in the first knockout in the round of 16, it's a mouth-watering prospects. But before that happens, all these teams are going to get through, and I mean that's the critical part. It's all good to be good on paper and to talk up your chances and like your matchups, but you've got to go out there and you've got to get the results. So, should have happened today, but
well, exactly.
You know.
I mean, I think France would know that all too well after the last World Cup. But let's move on to Group C now. This is one with probably a few lesser-known teams, or lighter weight teams in Colombia, Greece, the Ivory Coast, and Japan. And this is actually an interesting group because I can't really pick the top two teams in this group. I think Colombia are a decent shot, but then you've also got Japan and the Ivory Coast. I'd probably not give Greece too much of a chance, but what do you guys think?
If I was looking at this straight up, I'd say Japan and Ivory Coast. But having said, I'd say Japan would be probably as close as a lock as you'd get from this. Ivory Coast look to be coming out of their golden generation, and a lot will depend on how Yaya Toure is feeling after his birthday snub.
Yes.
But it's a really interesting group. I mean, there's no real. I'd probably argue Japan's probably the standout there, but I mean, it's not clear cut or anything like that. I mean, each team could probably raise a claim to say that they could go through.
Yep, and Colombia's got some solid. Well, they're hoping that Radamel Falcao's fit. They got Rodriguez, who's also a good player. Again, for the Ivory Coast, it's Yaya Toure, if he's actually feeling happy, and Drogba, who's now a bit old. Japan, well, we probably know the probably best players will be Keisuke Honda or Shinji Kagawa. What do we make of Japan have left out probably their different strike weapon in Mike Havener to go for smaller technical players that could possibly harm them, as a bit of physicality does hurt Japan quite a lot.
Yeah, they're a very you don't want to call them soft. They're more of a
Technical.
Minute people.
Yeah, they're a technical team, but the physicality, say, of the Ivory Coast will be very interesting to see how they cope with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's it. Well, yeah, the Ivory Coast will be an interesting one because, as you say, they're kind of coming out of that golden generation. But when you've got a guy like Yaya Toure who's in the form of his life at the moment, it'll be interesting to see how he goes.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely still have the cattle to progress. It's just whether they can produce. Because, I mean, from off the top of my head, they're not exactly the best tournament team going around. I mean, they're African Cup of Nations. They've arguably squandered plenty of opportunities to win that tournament in the past, and it's just a matter of whether they can actually bring it to this World Cup and get the most, last ounces out of this squad they've got together.
Yeah, well, it will certainly be interesting. Let's move on to the Group D, the final group we'll look at tonight, which is Uruguay, Costa Rica, England, and Italy. Who do you see going through from this group, Cooksen?
I'm probably going to go for England and Italy because I'm unsure about how Luis Suarez's injury will turn up. And the Italians, the more you ride off the Italians, the more they pull something from their arse and they win. So that's a lesson that's pretty much known throughout football. And I just think England's going to go for this because they'll be playing a different system, what they're doing there. They'll be more attacking, more dynamic. And the only real way I can see England not going through is if, Gerrard slips or Rooney doesn't show up. Because a lot of the English players have been in good form.
I found Scholes' comments from a few days ago quite interesting when he basically urged Hodgson to play as Liverpool has been playing this season. And I found it interesting, I suppose, because they do have quite a large contingent from Liverpool in their side. And it would be quite interesting to see a very attacking England because, as you say, I mean, that's not really been their style recently.
It's been just shove Lampard and Gerrard in the middle. And yeah, it's just Hodgson's actually decided to use a team that can work instead of just writing down the star plays.
It's going to be an interesting group in general. I mean, I'd say it's probably the pick of pick of the groups so far. I mean, again, you can mount a very good case for each team. Obviously, Uruguay is going to be heavily dependent on Suarez, if he can keep up his early 13-14 form, then that goes a long way from helping Uruguay steal one of the top two places. Costa Rica qualified ahead of Mexico, and I mean, on their day, they could definitely take points off on the other three teams. And I mean, who knows what you're going to get with England and Italy. Italy. They're very consistent. They're never going to be a pushover. And I mean, hell, if Balotelli decides to, take his finger out and actually dedicate himself to this, if Balotelli's a bit like he was in the Euros, then in the Euro finals, then Italy could go a long way in this. But having said that, they could get knocked out in this group stage as well. I mean, it's such an even group.
Well, I think a lot comes down to that first match between England and Italy, which is in Manaus, because that game could take a lot out of both sets of players. So I think, depending who comes out of that game, either with the 3 points or if it's a draw, could really impact on both of the sides in terms of qualifying from the group.
Oh, definitely. I think it sets the tone for the group as well. I mean, on the other side of that, Uruguay would want to get off to a good start against Costa Rica too and keep up that point pressure on Italy and England. Because, I mean, hell, if Uruguay walk away with 3 points and say Italy and England don't get any points out of their clash with Italy, then that's going to be a hell of a lot of pressure on England in their upcoming game against Uruguay.
Well, yeah.
They play each other in the second set of games.
As you say, I mean, the Suarez knee injury is the interesting one because I think he had an arthroscope or something on it, and that put Torres out for about 6 to 8 weeks when he did it, and Suarez is saying that he'll be fit for the World Cup. And there could be some smoke and mirrors going on there as to whether he'll actually be fit, but if he doesn't make it, it'd be a huge disappointment because, I mean, personally, I'm really looking forward to seeing Suarez against England.
Yeah, I mean, that's half the fun of the World Cup is, seeing all these great players come together. And when you have players such as Suarez, who, potentially can't make it to the World Cup because of injury, it's a loss to everyone. But perhaps England, Italy and Costa Rica. But it's just, the World Cup's a spectacle and, you want your best players out there and, dare I say it, you want your best actors out there.
Yes.
Didn't Torres come back from that knee injury from the World Cup, and didn't he just go to complete shit afterwards?
Well, I think was that might have been the knee injury that kind of spelt the end for him.
So I remember.
It was that knee injury, and also I think he had some groin issues as well.
Yeah.
Come on, guys, there's enough pain with Torres there.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll look at star players from Costa Rica. I can really only see 2 of them. Ryan Ruiz, ex-Fulham player, now at PSV Eindhoven. Joel Campbell, the forever Arsenal loanee at Olympiacos. For England, we have Joe Hart from City, Steven Gerrard as captain, Leighton Baines, wingback. We have the midfielders we know in Wilshere, Lampard. We have probably their 3 forwards in Sturridge, Rooney, Welbeck. Then we probably mostly know the English team. But look out for Luke Shaw, 18-year-old fullback, potential transfer to Manchester United or Chelsea. And for Italy, we have the old firm in Pirlo and Gianluigi Buffon. And possibly will be the starter in striker ahead of Balotelli is a player called Ciro Immobile.
Ooh, we want Balotelli.
Yeah, we want Balotelli. I want to see some Balotelli madness. The interesting one for England I want to look out for is Ross Barkley to see if he gets much game time because I think he's the sort of player who, if he plays to the occasion and he lifts his game to the occasion, he could actually prove to be quite a wild card for England.
Yeah, definitely.
And got Sterling too.
And Sterling, yeah, those young guys are definitely the ones that can really lift a team.
And Sturridge as well. I'd like to see how Sturridge carries on with his form this year that he's played with Liverpool. I mean, if he can bring that creativity and finishing to the World Cup, I mean, that helps England exponentially and takes the pressure off, say, Rooney and all that sort of stuff to kick their goals.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it will be a very interesting group to see how they all go.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and as I say, I reckon this shapes up to be the best group in the group stages. So plenty of excitement there, and it all starts off with a great match on the 14th of June with England and Italy, which is 8 a.m. Australian Eastern Time.
Yep,
So
You have an excuse to drink it early morning now, big footy.
it is a Sunday morning, so I mean, go out, have a big Saturday night, and then sit yourself in front of the couch, or do what I might do. Might go down to IMAX because IMAX in Melbourne's going to be broadcasting the game. So
Should be a good one.
I reckon it'll probably be the best one of the group stages potentially.
Absolutely.
Certainly the most passionate in the sense of multicultural Australia.
Absolutely.
What about predictions? Should we do some predictions
Yes,
for
let's do.
it? Like
let's
the best.
let's. Okay, it's just quickly. Let's say who do you want to do predictions for the groups or winner of the tournament?
Oh, why not both?
All right.
Winner
of the
and
tournament.
also and golden ball or top scorer.
Okay, you go first, Cooksen.
All right, winner of Group A, I'm going for Brazil. Winner of Group 3, I'm going for Spain. Group C, I'm going for Japan. Group D, I'm going for Italy. Best winner, I'm going for Germany. Best player, I'm going for Thomas Müller from Germany. And for top scorer, I'm going to go for Neymar.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Okay.
And prosecutor?
Brazil to top Group A, Spain to top Group B, Japan to top Group C, and I'll go with England to top Group D. Germany are my winners as well. Best player, I'll go... Oh, who shall I go? I'll go Juan Mata. I love Juan. Who am I kidding? And Golden Ball, what the hell, for the chaos, Mario Balotelli.
Okay. I'll stick with you guys and say.
Golden Boot.
Yeah, I'll say Brazil to top Group A, Spain to top Group B. Probably I might go with Colombia to top Group C, and I'll go with England to top Group D ahead of Italy. I reckon England might get up in Manaus, and that might get them on their way. To win the whole tournament, I'm going to go with Argentina. I have a bit of a soft spot for Argentina. I think as a South American side, they might be a good shot. And for Golden Boot, I'm going to say Messi. I'll go with the Argentina theme.
Be very interesting. I mean, we can talk about that more next week, but it's going to be very interesting to see how Messi comes out in this World Cup because there was a lot of hype around him in 2010 and a lot of criticism too about how his contribution to the team, obviously in a goal-scoring sense, but overall his impact. So be interesting how it goes at international level this time at the World Cup.
Absolutely. And on that note, I think we'll sign off for the night. Thanks everyone for listening to the first podcast, and tune in next week for discussion of the last 4 groups of the tournament. And we'll see you on the boards. Thanks, guys.
We are fighters, we are warriors, we were born to win this game. No compassion, feel the passion, running faster through our veins. Feel